Tiki, what's happening, dude? How you feeling today?
I am good, man. It is a bye week for the New York Giants. There's a lot of speculation going on with 6 hours to go until the NFL trade deadline passes. Now, obviously, deals can happen after that if they're on the cusp and they've started to reach out into the league. But it's about 6 hours for the Giants to potentially make a move. And you're seeing all kinds of speculation, some of it around Brandon Cooks or whoever Judy, or whoever it may be. But there's also other speculation saying that Joe Schoen is not willing to sacrifice any of the future monies that they're going to have in their coffers, which is about $55 or so million in cap space next season, which is humongous. I think it's third or fourth in the league next year. But that does not include a quarterback or Saquon Barkley, who you likely franchise if you don't get a long-term deal. So that's about $10 million off of that. So $44 or so million a year, which puts us on the quarterback question. Because I think ever since Joe Schoen came in, hired Brian Daboll, and started to reconfigure the expectation of this roster, Daniel Jones has been the biggest question mark. We don't know what the thinking is long-term, but we do know in real-time, short-term, we need to find out the answer. And we said this a couple weeks ago, BT, the more he wins, like the Giants are 6-2 right now. If they finish the season 11-6, then all of a sudden, the Giants aren't drafting.
It's possible, by the way.
Great. The Giants are not drafting in the top 15. Mm-hmm. And so any of those quarterbacks that we want to potentially look at coming out of college are not going to be available for them. But if the Giants finish 11-6, then Daniel Jones has probably done some really good things. And I got to tell you, I'm starting to believe, and I wouldn't have said this 6 months ago, definitely not a year ago, that Daniel Jones is that guy for the New York Giants. And I know people will go look at his statistics and they'll say, he's only completing, 60% of his passes. I haven't seen that big impact play down the field. I haven't seen him have a 350-yard day yet. But you have seen him emerge as a leader. And one of the biggest things that we talked about was his ball security. He's taking care of the ball. He's not tossing interceptions. He's not fumbling. He's getting those yards with his legs. And the reason that at this trade deadline, back to the original point of this conversation, in this trade deadline, is because in order to fully get that intel on Daniel Jones, you got to give him some talent in the wide receiver row. Now, you got some good players that work hard. I'm not going to diminish those guys, but there's not a difference maker. I think I want Daniel Jones to be this guy now. And the only way I'm going to be convinced of that is if the Giants go get him a star this year that has proven he can do it in the NFL, can get separation, can take crossing routes or deep balls and go 50, 60 yards for a touchdown. I need to see Daniel Jones have that option, because when he does, then we'll be able to determine he's our quarterback for next year and potentially for the future.
I like him. I've always liked Daniel Jones here. So I think what complicates the Giants' decision today is the fact that they're a very circumstantially led 6-2.
Yes.
Like if it was and it's not a diss, it's just the reality. They've got a point differential of 6.
That's right. And they beat the Titans and the Carolina Panthers and the Bears and Green Bay, who's floundering, Baltimore, which was a good win.
Well, I'm not even trying to minimize the wins, but it's just like they're circumstantial to an extent. There's a high level of execution, but there's a lower level of talent. And I think when you have that, you've got to navigate, which is why I understand there's a dilemma here for Joe Schoen and the Giants organization. Like, how do they process these next 5 or 6 hours? I'll tell you what I would do. Number one, I would look around the rest of the league and I'd say, okay, is it worth one mighty swing, clearly, without sacrificing too much of the future to make something meaningful happen this year? My answer is yes. Based on the standings, based on the randomness, based on everything we've seen so far halfway through the NFL season. It's wacky. And the Giants have a puncher's chance, number one. Number two, I'm in the deep part of the pool because I've gotten some answers, but I still need to collect a little more intel, a little, on Daniel Jones before I fully commit. And there's a lot of things about Danny that I like. He's smart. He's emotionally reliable. He's very talented. And I think he's just kind of scratching the surface of what he might be as a quarterback with some innovative play calling and an insurgence of talent on the roster, which you know invariably is going to come from somebody like Shane. And I think if you get a receiver today, I think, number one, you strengthen your grip on a wild card. I know the Eagles aren't off the table, but the Eagles right now are flying by everybody.
Yeah.
Let's be a little realistic. It's for the Giants, for me, it's a wild card. So you strengthen that pursuit, and you give yourself a chance to get maybe the final answer that you need for Jones before you give him a contract. So I'm looking to get a receiver.
Yeah, I think
I'm looking for somebody.
I think
Let's go.
And it's interesting when you talk about the Eagles. The Eagles are dominant right now.
They are.
They're top 3 offense and defense, scoring, yards, everything. They're as advertised. Like you talk about the Eagles being really good. It's not because they beat this team or that team. They're just really damn good, and they can lay it down on almost anybody in the NFL at this point. The Buffalo Bills are the same way, but I'm going to stick to the NFC. It's really 2 other teams, maybe, that you look at and say they are definitively better than the New York Giants. Dallas, and that's only because of Dak coming back and Tony Pollard turning into a star somehow underneath Ezekiel Elliott. They still want to start Zeke. I don't know why. Pollard's earned it, but Dallas, because their defense is good and their offense with Dak is much more explosive, as we saw last weekend. Minnesota, who have quietly become the most ignored but good team in the NFL. Kevin O'Connell gets no love at all. He's 6-1 right now. Again, his schedule is what it is, but they're 6-1, and you can't complain. Nobody in the South is scaring you. The NFC South, Atlanta, Tampa, New Orleans, Carolina. Nobody's scaring you. And really nobody in the West. I know the Seattle just beat the Giants, but it happened because the Giants didn't have ways to overcome their mistakes.
To get a receiver.
That's right. They didn't have ways to overcome the mistakes of Richie James, who was one of their starting receivers on the punt return. So when I look at it, it's like the Eagles, it's the Cowboys, and the
I would throw the Niners in there, too.
And the Minnesota Vikings.
Especially
and
the way C-Mac just looked.
And the Niners now.
I think the Niners win that division. But point still taken.
So
there's a dearth of teams right now.
That's 4 teams.
That you can say are legitimately
there's
better.
7 playoff spots, right? There's 4 teams that I could argue are better than the Giants.
I'm with you. I mean, listen.
And the Giants are right there. They can play with anybody.
I'm looking at the standings. Now, listen, you can manipulate stats, not the standings, I should say the stats, any way that you want, right? And I've said for years, you can take a guy who's sitting 233 and say, well, he's sitting into bad luck, and maybe make a case that he's actually better than 233.
Yeah, like Gallo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sitting the shifts.
Yeah, exactly.
That's balls.
That's true.
Right at people.
Or, conversely, a guy who's hitting a softish, 297, but, is not really thumping the ball, and that it's a matter of circumstance before that maybe resets itself and it recalibrates. So, and I look at the quarterback play in the NFL this year. Who's number 1 in quarterback rating? That's Tua, all right? Who's number 2? Mahomes, absolute stud. Who's number 3? Geno, okay. Who's number 4? Josh Allen, stud. But then you start to look at other members in the top 10, like Jimmy Garoppolo right now is a top 10 quarterback. And then you start going lower down the list. You're like, well, Tannehill's top 15. Jared Goff is top 15. Andy Dalton with 5 starts for the Saints is top 15. The point being, I think that we need to value Daniel Jones a little bit more than we do. Like, there was a couple of years ago where it seemed like it was a golden age of quarterback play. But given the atrocious nature of the position, the age of some guys, and other circumstances, I think people need to start appreciating. I think most Giant fans do. I do. And I think more importantly, the organization does.
Yes.
But I think to fully appreciate, and maybe more specifically to fully value or even judge what you have, go get one more weapon. Get the final answer.
Get
for
the
it.
understanding.
You're not 2-4. You're 6-2.
And it's the conversation you always have around young quarterbacks. Put talent around them. Think about the guys that you mentioned. Tua, who is one of the top-rated passers in the NFL. Literally a year ago, people were trying to run him out of the league. Forget like he wasn't suited for Miami. He's a terrible quarterback. Get him the hell out of the league. Now you bring obviously,
You had Waddle.
Waddle started to evolve last year into the star that he is that we all saw at Alabama. You go get Tyreek Hill.
You have a good tight end.
You got a good tight end in Gesicki, and now all of a sudden, Tua Tagovailoa is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah,
and so
which I don't believe, by the way, but the stats back that up.
But it's not even the point. Forget who he is; it's who's around him. And so when you put good talent around these quarterbacks that perceptually you would say are very average, interesting and great things start to happen. The other one is Jalen Hurts, 2nd-round pick. Took Carson Wentz's job because Carson Wentz is I don't know.
At this point, I think we can say he's finished.
Whatever. He is what he is.
Don't search too hard.
Nobody really believed in Jalen Hurts being the guy. You put Devontae Smith, who you drafted a year before, and he gets out of that rookie season, gets into a second season, he starts balling just like he did again at Alabama, and then you bring in maybe A.J. Brown,
he might
help
fit.
him out a little bit.
Sure.
You got a good tight end, and Dallas Goedert,
yeah.
and so all of a sudden Jalen Hurts is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in football. So this is the way to make the average perceived quarterback become really good and putting talent around him. And Daniel Jones has never had that. And so I think when I look at the trade deadline, this is why I'm conflicted, because I understand why Joe Shane, and I read Paul Schwartz's article in the Post this morning about how he's likely not to sacrifice the future and give up the cap for right now. I get it. And I've talked to Joe Shane about this, how we just got to be patient. You gotta live for what it is right now and save the money for when it really matters. But at the same time, the Giants are 6-2. And as we said before, there's 4.
It's November.
Maybe 4 teams.
Giants matter.
Maybe 4 teams that are demonstratively better than them. Maybe 4. And they have a shot at the postseason. So as much as I get the patient side, I almost say, just go for it, man. Why not? You're not going to win a Super Bowl, but you're going to get close. You're going to get to the postseason. And then as we know, in this town, anything can happen once you get into the postseason.
Just ask the Giants. 877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney on the Fan. Good Tuesday morning to you. Yeah, I mean, we're on the same page here. We understand the dynamics of not sacrificing too much of the future, but man, you're not 3-5, you're not 2-6, you're 6-2. As Tiki so accurately pointed out, the NFC is all whacked out this year. Take a shot. All right, we're inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Our friends at Town Fair remind you that you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. All right, Giant fans. Here's your mission. There's 2 aspects to this conversation. Number 1, what you think the Giants should do, okay? And we laid that out for you. And I was going to say number 2, which really this might even be number 1. Here we are, halfway into what could be the final evaluation of Daniel Jones. And the way we analyze him over the years, it's fluctuated wildly. Where are you right now with Daniel Jones? We'll get these calls coming up, 877-337-6666.